Welcome back to Fantasy Football Touchback. I'm Megan. That's Chris. It's week 10. We're about halfway through the regular season. How you feeling, Chris?
I'm feeling all right. Tired other than the time change, but everything else, we're doing great.
Yeah. We have a big week this week with all of the trades that occurred, all the injuries that are out there, and a bunch of teams that are vying for playoffs. So let's get started with bye weeks. First up, we have Cincinnati Bengals are out. Hopefully, they can figure out what they're doing from a quarterback connection perspective. Dallas Cowboys had a great game last week. Just really going to take advantage of that rest. Kansas City Chiefs definitely need that bye week after their loss to the Bills last week. And Tennessee Titans. I wonder if the league will give them 2 bye weeks.
Or
What do you
just
think?
take the rest of the year off and be like, we're just gonna
Right, just
help everybody.
restart next
Exactly. You
year.
just come back. You guys just take a long training camp. That'll that's horrible. Shouldn't say that. But yeah, no, that would be something. So yeah, Cincinnati needs to figure something out because that offense is good, but boy, they are absolutely just at each other's throats with the offense VT.
Yeah, for sure.
But because you have injuries, that's kind of what happens. And speaking of injuries, we unfortunately had a couple big ones this last week. Jaden Daniels dislocated elbow. Luckily there's not a fracture, so they don't have a timetable for him to be back. But they said he could possibly come back this year. I guarantee you that's only if they're in playoff contention. That's the only way they're going. CJ Stroud, you guys saw the nasty hit that he took when he forgot how to slide. Concussion, we'll work it out. Hopefully, he gets in there the next couple weeks because they've already said that it's severe enough where they're not even going to try to practice him this week. I'm sorry, Megan. Luke McCaffrey has a broken collarbone. Um,
Let's send him cookies.
okay, you send him cookies. Um, Tucker Craft is probably the biggest name on this,
Gosh.
other than Jaden Daniels, but Tucker Craft is going to affect his team more because he was probably your top tight end in the league.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep an eye on. You're going to have Luke Musgrave take his spot in Green Bay. So hopefully they'll be able to use Luke as much as they did with Tucker or see who else can they rely on there. And then Cole Kmet, it's been a back injury. It finally came out saying that he had a back injury. He played a little bit last week and then he got concussed. So Cole
Cole
Kmet.
Kmet's the new Jaden Daniels,
um,
who is still Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, it's fortunate. Just gotta stay healthy to play in this league. It makes it's a simple concept, but that's really all you have to do there. Yeah, so those are our injuries for this week. Through the matchups, we'll go ahead and tell you exactly what you need to know, who you're going to pick up, how those trades affected. We aren't going to do a trade slide because there were 10 of them and we don't need to go over all 10. But through the matchups, we will go ahead and see how that affects each of those teams when we.
If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you. Welcome back. Let's get started with matchups. First off, we have Thursday Night Football, Raiders at Broncos. The Broncos are at home for their short week and they're coming off a 6-game winning streak. The Broncos' defensive line leads the league in sacks and has a top tier run defense. With Brock Bowers' return last week for the Raiders, and Surtain potentially out, they might struggle with the bigger plays, but I still expect that the Broncos are going to do well this week. Geno Smith is still Geno Smith, so no surprises there. Chris, you want to start off with our Sunday night or Sunday morning with the international games?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll go to Berlin for this one for Atlanta versus Indianapolis. This is at the Olympic Stadium or the Olympia Stadion, as they say. And don't laugh.
I'm trying not to. Go ahead. You have
Butcher that.
German in you. You should
I
be able to pronounce it correctly.
don't want to spit on my. Anyway, big thing about this game is that the Indianapolis Colts defense got a real big piece in Sauce Gardner from the New York Jets. So that's kind of really where the big topic is going to be surrounding this game. Other than it's the second game ever in Germany, this is something where you're going to have Atlanta probably running the ball and Jonathan Taylor running the ball, and that's going to be your highlights of it. Drake London had an insane game last week, as did um, Michael Pittman. Not it was probably Pittman's best game of the year, but it definitely was Drake London's best year. But really, it's like we say with these international games, they're hit or miss. The one thing they can rely on is the running game because it's finding lanes. The big uglies in the trenches are going to go ahead and make room, and you're just hoping that the opposite quarterback gets shut down. And like I said, with the Indianapolis defense getting that huge piece in Sauce Gardner, they should probably have no issue stopping both Drake London or Darnell Mooney. That's all I really have for the Indianapolis game. Megan, want to go to Carolina for that 1 o'clock?
Sounds great. 1 o'clock
Awesome.
your time.
Well, yes.
The Carolina Panthers have won 4 of their last 5 games, including last week's upset against the Packers. This week, run game is key. Both of these teams are great at running the ball, but Rico Dowdle is going to exploit the Saints' run defense because their run defense is really, really terrible. I also have Tyler Shook as his second start of the year. He did okay last week. Not anything to write home about. Hopefully he's getting those first game jitters out of the way and he can actually play this week, but I'm still expecting um this to be the Bryce Young, Rico Dowdle uh show this week. That's all I have.
Yeah, I think you're right on with that. The one thing I would like to mention about this is because Tyler Shuck does not have Rashid Shaheed in this game anymore because they traded him over on Tuesday. You're gonna see a little bit more Brandon Cook. I think that's pretty much. I would just say have him be more a. He's gonna get more looks now that Shaheed is. Just something in case you are looking to fill in after the bye weeks that Brandon Cooks is something like that. But after that, we can go to Chicago. And what can we say about this game other than the Giants are trying to just hang on for dear life, like kind of like we've said in the past. Wandell Robinson had a really nice game last week with Jackson Dart. That is obviously his number one go-to. Devin Singletary outpaced and outtouched Tyrone Tracy Jr. for the first time all season, and that's pretty significant considering that Tyrone Tracy was the number two behind Scadaboo. So the fact that Singletary's out there a lot more, probably about 20% more than Tracy was, that's something that I would go ahead and keep an eye on. Chicago had an incredible comeback against the Cincinnati Bengals last week. Yes, the Bengals defense is trash. We know that. And the New York defense is okay, but it's just about getting to the quarterback. And the only one who wants to get to the quarterback right now is Burns for the Giants. So I don't expect Chicago to face a lot of bad pressure. I expect New York to have a few worse interceptions and turnovers in this game with how aggressive the Chicago defense is being. But absolutely, I would stick over to the Chicago side on their players versus New York Giants. You have anything else for this game, Meg?
No, I agree with what you're saying. New York, unfortunately, has not been able to keep up their pace without Scatabo. So I guess we'll hope that Chicago does well with what they've been doing this year.
Absolutely. All right, off to Houston for you.
Often. The outcome of this game is highly dependent on CJ Stroud's status. If you saw any of last week's game, or Houston's last week's game, CJ Stroud went out early and there was no news. He just wasn't playing. Sure enough, he had a concussion and has to go through a concussion protocol. And as you know, depending on the severity of the concussion, he could be out this game, he could be out next. Um, team's saying he looks great. They're just waiting on that concussion protocol. So we really don't know at this point if he's going to be able to play. So,
They actually
oh,
just about an hour ago ruled him out.
did they?
Yeah,
Okay.
they said he's not expected to practice, so they're still hoping for next week. Davis.
Oh, okay. I missed that. So yeah, so CJ's round is out. We're going to rely on Houston defense for their strong passing defense. Jacksonville did acquire Jacoby Myers this week in trades, and as you know, Jacoby Myers is great at catching that ball, and as long as he can get away from Houston defense, he should have a great game. Um, Houston did play the Raiders, Jacoby's last team, already this year. And Myers was able to complete 4 of his 6 targets and run for 23 yards. So we know he can move against that defense. And hopefully he'll have a couple more targets this week as well. Um, on the Jaguar side, it's really hard to say. We have Thomas Jr. on our list, but he is out. Um, with I don't remember what his injury was, but a significant enough injury to keep him out for a couple of weeks. Um, we we want to focus more on Travis Etienne Jr. For the Jags this for their run game. And then if you saw the Jags game last week, Cam Little had that 68-yard field goal, so we know he has a leg and he's consistent and can be useful for the team if they get into a bind. Um, oh, Fairbairn. We also heard this week today, that he has a lower back injury. And, I don't remember seeing it during the game last week, but apparently it's affecting him enough that the Texans signed kicker Matthew Wright to their practice squad just as a precaution in case Fairbairn can't go. But keep your eyes out for that. I know a lot of you have Fairbairn on your fantasy teams for kicker, but he may not play. I don't see anything else I want to talk about here, Chris. Do you want to go to Hard Rock for Bills and
I
Dolphins?
do. I do. Off to Miami we go. The Buffalo Bills are back on track, is what they are saying. Josh Allen is the favorite to be the MVP of the league. James Cook is the greatest running back of all time. Dalton Kincaid is, you're finally seeing, this is what all the people are saying after just 1 week with Buffalo beating the Kansas City Chiefs. You also have people saying that it was the Kansas City Chiefs and Buffalo always beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the regular season. So take it as it is. But the one thing that we did see out of the Buffalo Bills was that they were in control of that game from beginning to end. There was no in between. Buffalo, as soon as they got the score up, they weren't letting that go. And that's something we really hadn't seen. Unfortunately, their defense lost a major key in Michael Hoyt. And so that
Yeah.
4-man pressure that they were getting against Mahomes all game did take a hit. I was surprised Buffalo didn't go and trade for somebody at the trade deadline, but their offense isn't really what they were needing to fix. Yes, people say give him a wide receiver because Keon Coleman catches 2 or 3 passes a game and it's in garbage time. Khalil Shakir, absolutely, like he did last year, is picking up all of those targets and that he will love to do that against Miami, who just traded away their top edge rusher in Jalen Phillips. So that is something that we're looking at here. Buffalo is going to have a much easier time running the ball this game. They have a much easier time passing the ball this game, and their defense should, and I say should, with Hairston being back, and looks like their linebacker core is back, and looks like Bishop, everything is slowed down for him. Waddle should be contained. A chain should be contained. I'm really interested in seeing how this game develops since um, since the last time they played each other, which we were at that game, Megan. So it should be interesting watching it from this angle together. Anything else you want to add?
No, just that A Chain is not really consistent at all. You would expect that Miami would stick with the what they know, especially with Tyreek being out, but it seems like they're falling apart.
All right, let's go to Minnesota.
Baltimore Ravens at Minnesota, US Bank Stadium. The Ravens are expected to win this game, obviously. I guess you can't really say obvious. The Vikings had a pretty good start to the game or to the year, but that was with JJ McCarthy, and then they lost him for a couple of weeks, and now he's back. Um, Minnesota also has Justin Jefferson. I'm still waiting for them to really show up as the duo that they are meant to be. Justin Jefferson is putting in the yards, but it just doesn't feel like the team that they used to be. On the other side of the ball, we have Baltimore. Lamar Jackson obviously was back last week and did an amazing job. It seemed like Derrick Henry missed his quarterback and also did really, really well. Um, and I would expect Derrick Henry to also do well this week against the Vikings because their run defense is ranked 20th in the league. Um, so definitely the Baltimore guys here. I am not against putting JJ McCarthy or Justin Jefferson on your fantasy teams. Um, Will Reichard also has a great choice for kicker. But I would expect that Baltimore is going to be the better team this week. Anything else, Chris?
Other than I think it's going to be a shootout just like you do. So, no defense in this game. So, good luck and off to the Meadowlands Stadium where the Cleveland Browns are going to face off against the New York Jets. And I wanted to come up with a really fun nickname for the Jets since they just traded away all their good players, but they do still have Brees Hall. They still do have Garrett Wilson, as long as they're healthy. Brees Hall
Yeah.
was real upset that he didn't get traded, and so that's kind of something where I'm looking into um, how he comes in, if he's going to pout, if he's just not going to play. So keep an eye on that. Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor is technically still injured. They, as the team, have still not announced who's going to start. So if I had to lean a certain way, I'm going to probably say it's Justin Fields. But again, just keep an eye on our comments and our X account, and we'll go ahead and keep you updated there. As for Cleveland, that number one defense is still that number one defense. That them and Denver are the top two defenses this year. They're doing really really well. Cedric Tillman, they've opened up his 21-day practice schedule from IR, so he has a possibility to start this game or come back in. If he does not, then the only wide receiver you need to worry about on this team is Jerry Judy. David Njoku, he's going to be there as a good outlet for Dylan Gabriel. And as long as Q Jenkins can play, which again, we're expecting him to, then they're just going to run the ball all over the. If Jenkins can't play, look for Dylan Sampson to go ahead and take those carries. But other than that, this is just going to be a low scoring, ugly game. Going to go really fast because both teams are just going to run. That's all I got.
Yeah, we'll see.
So, Tampa Bay is next. Big matchup here.
Yeah, for sure. I'm last time we talked about the Patriots with a team that was formidable, the Patriots showed up and they did all right. And, this week they have the Buccaneers, which is probably one of the most formidable teams for them to match up against, especially since the Bucks just came off of their bye week and they're healthy. Baker Mayfield is doing well in Tampa Bay. He is really hitting up Rashad White and Amika Egbuka. Chris Godwin has been injured. They're expecting to see him back this week. And I hope so because I've missed him. Um, I I'm not sure who I would pick on the Patriots. For fantasy, obviously Drake May has been showing up. Um, Stephon Diggs and Hunter Henry are his two favorite targets, and I looked at the stats earlier, and Stephon Diggs has 85% of his receptions are completions, which is insane. I can't even imagine like Like I love the guy. I'm mad that he went to the Patriots and that he's showing up for them in his first year with the Patriots. But he's showing up as the wide receiver that we expected him to be. Um, Tampa Bay has more of a run heavy defense, so we're expecting Drake to throw more. So like I said, Stephon Diggs, Hunter Henry are gonna have more targets than they did last week, because they ran more of a run game last week, but they have it in their arsenal, if they want to use it. So definitely a lot of good players here to pick up or to start, on both sides of the ball for me, and I'm looking forward to watching this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris?
That's I completely agree. This is by far the best game of the week.
Okay. Cardinals
Uh,
at Seahawks.
this one should be interesting. Seattle is just overpowered, and with Seattle being overpowered, it's just so much. I won't say of a struggle to watch them play any other team, because if you watch them, then it's just something that once they're going and they just get so far ahead and nobody can catch them. So it sometimes it's a good one, but then you're going to have Jackson Smith and Jigba. You're going to have Zach Charbonnet. You're going to have them, but then Sam Darnold gets pulled out in the fourth quarter, and we're just not getting what the value out of it that we need for fantasy football from Sam Darnold. Charbonnet is going to steal those touchdowns from Kenneth Walker. They're both getting about the same amount of touches, but Charbonnet is definitely the hotter hand to go with. Jackson Smith and Jigba was not having a hard time getting the ball or giving us fantasy stats, but they decided to go for Rashid Shaheed from New Orleans, and that's just going to spread the ball or spread the yard or the field. That's the word it's called. Holy cow! Spread the field a lot more and open up that underneath stuff for AJ Barner. So I fully expect Seattle to just dominate. Arizona, they have decided to sit Kyler Murray and name Jacoby Brissett as the starter. Which again, they're saying this because he's still injured, but all of the talking heads, all the insiders, everybody said, no, this is an actual a benching of Kyler Murray, and Brissett gives them a better chance to win, and they're still in it playoff wise, so they're going to try and get it because Marvin Harrison does better. You have DeMarcado does better. Devin Denavon Knight had the majority of the touches in that game as well. Michael Wilson got involved. Trey McBride absolutely does better underneath Jacoby Brissett. And Chad Ryland, he had a fantastic game last week. So, yes, the last game was the best game of the week. This is probably a close second. As long as Seattle does not run away with it from the beginning, which, again, being in Seattle, that 12th man is going to be super loud. So, just be very, very cautious. Um, or don't be surprised if either one does really well or either one does anything, because all the cookie crumbles with it. Okay, let's go to San Francisco.
Thanks. Los Angeles Rams are at the 49ers this week in San Francisco. While the 49ers beat the Rams in week 5, Matthew Stafford is having an MVP caliber season. Uh, I I'm expecting him to have an even better game than he has in the last couple of weeks because both Puka and Kyron Williams are expected to be back this week. On the San Francisco side, Brock Purdy is still recovering from turf toe, so we still have Mac Jones in. They did pull off a win last week, but I don't think it's going to matter this week because the Rams have a top tier defense for both pass and rush, and I don't know what San Francisco is going to do. They have Christian McCaffrey, Ricky Pearsall. Did you hear, is he back, Chris? I
Ricky
didn't
is
hear if he was
not
back.
playing. Ricky is not
Yeah.
playing. Brock is not.
Yeah. So he has Kittle, who's doing nothing. He has Juwan Jennings and Christian McCaffrey, which both have breakout performances, but they aren't consistent. I expect Los Angeles to run the field with San Francisco this week, even though San Francisco won in week 5.
Definitely different. Look, San Francisco much more injured than they were when they first played.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think Los Angeles.
They've had a great year like with the injuries, like they've been able to
Mm,
play through them, but I don't think that they're gonna be able to match up against the Rams this week.
no, no, I agree. Los Angeles is getting all their injured players back, and San Francisco is having a deal. But we will see those matchups. McVay versus Shanahan. They're always a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, they really are. Detroit at Washington.
Huh? Well, this was a much better looking game before last week's injuries,
Yeah.
and Washington's just a shell of what it is. Marcus Mariota, Bill still isn't doing anything. Terry McLaurin, I think he just doesn't want to play. I think it's, and I hate to say it, that his injury keeps him out, and there's no timetable for him to come back, which usually means it's a little bit more than just an injury, especially when it comes down to a hamstring. So let's assume that Debo Samuel is number one. Chris Moore is going to replace where McLaurin is. Zach Ertz is Mariota's outlet, but Mariota's outlet is to run the ball. So just expect a bunch of scrambling. So you had that dual threat on him, but that's kind of where you're in with Washington. And all Detroit needs to do is just spy, and Washington's going to do nothing in this game. What I hope to see, though, is Jahmyr Gibbs to have a much better performance than he had last week. Last week was his worst performance as a Detroit Lion in his entire career. David Montgomery, he had a couple things, but it's just that two-headed monster that we've seen in years past has not been there this year. And this is a great game to go ahead and get that started. The Washington defense isn't, they're looking old and they're showing their age, and so I honestly think Detroit should be able to open up and just take it to them. That's all I got on this one. Not much I wanted to talk about on the Washington side because injuries just.
Okay.
Um,
Well, let's move on.
yeah. To Los Angeles, but for the Chargers.
Sunday Night Football. I I'm not expecting much from this game. Like it's a Sunday Night Football game, and you would expect it to be this big game that they had planned, and maybe the NFL thought this was going to be a better matchup than it is. But these teams are fairly well matched. You know, they're both run heavy. Both of them lost, or sorry, both of them won last week. Um, Steelers have a better run defense, but not by much. So I'm expecting the Chargers to try to take advantage of that and use Kamani Vidal a lot. Um, I also have Jalen Warren on the Steelers side. So running, I don't know that they're necessarily going to push for that run game, even though both of them like it. Um, the Chargers have a potential hole in their O line at right tackle, um, which is yeah. They've signed a veteran. I don't remember his name, but a veteran tackle to take his place. But we'll see if he's able to fill that hole. Um, but at the same time, the Steelers are really hurting in their secondary. So it's just going to be a comedy of errors this game. Like I'm expecting it to be whatever works, and they're just going to try everything. So I have Keenan Allen and Lab McConkey um, on the Los Angeles side for passing, and expecting both teams to do a lot of running as well. That's what I have for Sunday night.
No, it's a good analysis on there. That Joe Alt loss is gonna hurt them. So,
Yeah, we'll have to say.
all right, for Monday Night Football, finish it up in Green Bay. This is where Green Bay hopes Micah Parsons comes in and just gives Jalen Hurts fits because the Philadelphia Eagles, they made a lot of moves like they always do at the trade deadline, and some of them are good. Actually, all of them are good. You you'd be crazy if you didn't get one Jalen Phillips or any of the other players that they got because that's how Howie Roseman works. he brings in players, flips them, he uses them for the rest of the year, and then gets compensatory picks. But that is for the actual team breakdowns for a regular podcast when we start that next year. We'll get more there. I know, surprise. We're not announced anything yet. Megan does not even know. This is just fantasy. And when it comes down to fantasy, the Philadelphia Eagles defense couldn't have gotten better, and yet it still did. So
Yeah.
big name came to their defense. So that's going to be an uptick in sacks. It's going to probably be an uptick in interceptions. Just to give you a heads up there. You have AJ Brown. Hopefully he can play. If he can't, Jahan Dotson will go ahead and take his spot. But Devontae Smith is there. Dallas Goedert having a fantastic game last week. Saquon Barkley will not be able to run, I don't think, much against this Green Bay defense. But we shall see. Josh Jacobs should be able to run, I would imagine, at least as much as Saquon against the Philadelphia defense. So they're going to handle the ball. They're going to try to pound the rock on both sides. But with the Green Bay Packers losing Tucker Kraft, sorry about
Yeah.
jinxing you. But for the season, Luke Musgrave, they have to rely on Luke Musgrave. And if you don't forget, a couple years back, Musgrave was a really good tight end, and then he had an Achilles injury, and then he just was never the same once he came back from it. You look at most people, unless your name is Stephon Diggs, once you have an Achilles injury, it takes you about 2 years to come back from it. So maybe he'll be right as rain, and he'll be able to rely on that, and we'll get to see them use Luke Musgrave. But definitely, if he is available in your leagues, I would be picking him up as a tight end, um, just to fill, especially if you lost Tyler Craft for the year. But other than this, I think it's gonna be back and forth. I don't think it's gonna be a real heavy points game. I think it's just gonna be a couple, not necessarily three and outs, but a couple of drives and then punt, or a couple of drives and then a field goal. So your field goal kickers, they are, unfortunately, both of them are being quite inconsistent right now with Jake Elliott, Brandon McManus. They both can hit it. They both can kick extremely well, but it's just going to depend on weather. We're in Green Bay, so it'll be a little windy. But that's, again, it's on grass. So Jake Elliott, Brandon McManus, they hopefully will be able to get you the maximum amount. So that's kind of what we have for our matchups. When we come back, we'll go ahead and do our sleepers, our traps, our locks, like we do every week, and we will be right back very soon. Make sure to like and subscribe now. All right, now that was the matchups. What a crazy week to come into after the trades and everything. I mean, it's the trade deadline from Tuesday was just insane. 10 trades. Let's go over some sleepers, locks, and picks, but see how we did it last week first. It comes to our sleepers. CJ Stroud was actually doing pretty good until he got injured. And so that kind of is where it killed us on it. But Vidal played well. Addison played better than Jefferson. Holston Loveland had a walk-off touchdown at the very end. Not to mention it was a 73-yarder. Daniel Carlson, he didn't unfortunately get the record in that game, but at least he was there for it. But still, Daniel Carlson had a good game, just like Cam Little did. But congratulations, Cam Little. Thank you. I called it. He was going to break the record. That's just from me to you. Huzzah. And the Chargers also, they did what we were expecting them. For the traps, Joe Flacco got into a shootout. And that was really the most surprising thing, was the shootout that he was against the Bears with. I thought the Bears were going to be able to shut him down, or at least get to him, and they had a pick six that got called back. There was many chances that they just kept letting the Bengals in, and they kept going. Bill Krosky Merritt, he did exactly what we thought he would. Carry the ball about 11, 12 times, I believe, and had just over 30 yards. Keon Coleman, only a couple receptions. Again, it's just a killer, but I think it's one of those things where, like we said, he has to start catching them more consistent. Evan Ingram did okay, so kind of was that average for him, so that was more than what I thought he was going to do, but like we said with Cam Little, we kind of expected him not to have a big game because we thought it was going to be all extra points. And he did break the 68-yard field goal record. So I missed it, but I also said that I'm not going to believe it until I see it. And now I see it. And the Carolina Panthers, yeah, they won, but boy, their defense, they did have a okay game, but it's still points wise, they didn't get where they wanted to be. And finally, with that is our locks with Justin Herbert. DeAndre Swift got this one's all about injuries. Unfortunately, with our locks, we would have been fine, but the injuries kind of hurt us. Herbert had a good game, so absolute lock there. DeAndre Swift was injured before the game, so that kind of hurts us with his groin. DK Metcalf, number one receiver on the Steelers. Tucker Kraft got injured with that horrible ACL. Tyler Loop, he kicked it 4 times. Unfortunately, they were extra points, so at least it was 100%. And the Rams absolutely were solid with that. So. But let's get to this week 10. What about those sleepers, Meg?
You're starting with Bryce Young.
Oh, is it okay? I am starting with Bryce Young. Bryce Young as a sleeper. Holy cow! This we're running late here, but Bryce Young as a sleeper for the Panthers against New Orleans. Like we said during the matchups, I think just the matchup is where it needs to be. They're going to rely on Rico Doyle, and then that's just going to open up everything in that secondary because the Saints are just going to be so hyper focused on.
Derrick Henry, like we said in matchups, he didn't do very much earlier in the year, but with Lamar coming back, he's seen a significant increase in usage, recording 2 100-yard games in his last 3 outings. So we're expecting Derrick Henry to continue to do well. Keenan Allen, Chris?
Yeah, Keenan Allen with the Chargers. Again, this is a great matchup against Pittsburgh. Like Megan was saying, yeah, they both like to run, but we're probably going to see a big passing game. And Keenan Allen, he's always that go-to for Justin Herbert. Yeah, they have McConkey. Yes, they have Johnson. Keenan Allen's going to get your touchdown.
Inconsistent. We're gonna try Mark Andrews at tight end. He's not always the most consistent guy, but with Minnesota's passing defense, they have a big vulnerability there, and I expect that Baltimore's going to exploit it. So Mark Andrews for sleeper this week.
Week. And
Week.
Mark Andrews for sleeper this year is probably a good thing to say too. He's definitely doing better than he was last year, but the Baltimore Ravens just turn things around there. But Ryan Fitzgerald, that is something where another Carolina Panther. We just really like that matchup for our sleepers because of the potential there.
Carolina Panthers defense. They did lose last week, but they delivered a 9 respectable fantasy points. So we see them as consistent. We expect them to do well, especially against the Saints this week. Carolina Panthers for defensive sleeper.
I'll just see what our trapped players are for this upcoming.
I'll start with Geno Smith. We were really hoping that he would have a comeback year with like so many of the other quarterbacks that have come back the second stringers that are coming and being the first stringers and doing so well. It's just not happening for Geno. I don't know what else to say. We talked about it in the matchups too. He's not surprising week to week because he's just not doing anything. So
Yeah.
he's our trap for quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, hard to be consistent.
Yeah.
And the good graces of fantasy owners. Brees Hall, we're going to go ahead and say the same thing about consistency. Yes, before they went on their bye week, they played against Cincinnati. He had over 100 yards. Yes, he's absolutely great. But this week, he's playing the Cleveland Browns, who is the number one rushing defense in the league, possibly the best defense in the league total. And he's pissed at the team for not trading him. So I don't think Brees Hall, in the way that his ex account was talking, and the way that he's just been acting lately, gonna give the Jets his hardest attempts. So that's kind of where I feel on him.
DJ Moore, the Bears are doing a lot better than anybody expected. But at the same time, they have a rookie quarterback who is a rookie quarterback and doesn't know when to choose the right target to throw to or hand off to or whatever else. So he's just kind of playing willy-nilly. That means that DJ Moore is not getting the ball as often as he should and needs to be. So we expect DJ Moore to be a trap this week because he's competing for all of his targets with Caleb.
Zach Ertz getting to him. Jaden Daniels isn't in. Marcus Mariota doesn't use tight ends. That's
Wow. For kickers, we have both. Are you gonna be all right? I know Zach Ertz is kind of like near and dear to your heart, but can we
yes.
move forward?
I am fine. You
Okay.
go ahead. I'm gonna mute myself while you go ahead and talk.
Oh, good. I'll try to be slow. We have that is not muting yourself, sir. Oh, okay. Eddie Pinheiro and Joshua Cardi are both traps this week, mostly because we hate the matchup. We don't like the kickers for this game whatsoever. So don't pick Eddie, don't pick Joshua. Kickers for days.
Makes sense. One game to not pick a kicker. New England Patriots. This is right now. Everybody says they have a really easy schedule, and they've been showing off their schedule. And the Patriots are going to go undefeated the rest of the way and win the AFC East and be the number one seed. And blah blah blah. Patriots. They don't have Buffalo on that. They don't have the Buccaneers. They don't have some other that are going to be more difficult. And this is probably the biggest challenge that they're going to have because Tampa Bay is not going to overlook the Patriots. So expect Ibuka to have a big game. Expect if Godwin comes back to have a big game. Rashad White's going to try to run as much as he can. I think this is something that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a real chance to just show out.
Yeah.
Now for the locks of the week.
Matthew Stafford for quarterback. We said it at the matchups. He's performing at the MVP level. I can't say anymore. He's just becoming a much better quarterback week to week to week.
And James Cook, same kind of thing. Consistently wise, the man is putting up 100-yard games from scrimmage on the ground week after week after week. If we didn't have Jonathan Taylor putting up outstanding numbers, James Cook would absolutely have a chance to be a candidate for Offensive Player of the Year. The last time they faced, he ended up having over 119 carries for 108 yards, one touchdown, and then 3 receptions. So I expect him to go ahead and have comparable stats to that going into.
Well, let's hope. Monreal St. Brown. If you've seen him play, you know that he's a clear focal point for the Lions passing game. He's just available and takes off. He's playing against the Washington defense this week, which is really bad as far as allowing a high number of yards and a high number of points. So we expect to see Ramon-Ra St. Brown do well against Washington this week.
Wilson Loveland, like last week, he was the walk-off, had a walk-off touchdown. This week he has an easier matchup. Now Cincinnati's not a great defense, but neither is the New York Giants. But the one thing the Giants do have is a great defensive line. And if they're going to try to get to Caleb Williams, Caleb's going to want to use Loveland, especially with Cole Kmet being out, as that drop off.
For kicker, we felt like we needed to give the Jets something this week because they did win a game, and we're wanting to applaud that objectively only. So we gave it to Nick Folk because he consistently is in the 6 to 8 point range for kickers, and that is great from a fantasy perspective.
Denver Broncos, all that they have to do is stop Ashton Genty. Yes, Brock Bowers is in there, but you get a little bit of pressure on Geno Smith, and he forgets how to play quarterback. Kind of easy to do when you have the top defensive line in the league and are facing against a dot offensive. So stop the run. Therefore, you stop Brock Bowers because they won't be able to get to them. That's why you lock. And that should be the locks for that, just like we lock it up every single week here at the on Fantasy Football Touchback Podcast at CTW. So once again, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you being here, coming in week by week, leaving us comments, checking out the X account. I am Chris. That is Megan. And I think we have one more thing to do, Meg.
Nobody circles the wagons like CTW. Have a good night, everybody.
We'll see you next week.